This all started with a pint and a packet of cheese and onion crisps. Yum. And a good old-fashioned chat. It was 2 years ago, and I was in a pub sharing a pint with a very good friend of mine, Daniel Charny. We're both designers, and we were talking about the maker movement. The maker movement, there are people all over the world making everything from brownies to DIY rockets that they fire into space, and absolutely everything in between. I mean, if you can imagine something, anything, there's probably somebody out there already making it or trying to make it. And maker movement is a really incredibly rich, beautiful culture. But one of the things that make it really beautiful is the fact that when people make stuff, makers, they share what they make. They share their ideas, they share their process, and they share their skills. And how we share has exploded in the last 10 years. Every one of us have an amazing, shiny black box in your pockets. And this is a vehicle that we can share anything, and we literally share everything with the world today. But we don't only just share, we also seek information. Somebody can post their recipe, their killer recipe for brownies on the internet, and somebody, somewhere else in the world, can find that recipe, and they can like it. But more importantly, they can copy it. And they can learn from that recipe, and they can tweak it, and they can push it back out into the world, and others can learn and like. There are people also, learning to play guitar. Like, the internet's incredible. People are learning to play guitar from complete strangers on the other side of the planet on YouTube. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make a small confession. I'm not ashamed to say this. I love the internet. I love it. It's amazing. The internet doesn't care what I want. The internet doesn't judge me. If I ask the internet for something, it will give it to me. And Daniel and I were in the pub, and we're just playing around. And we decided to ask the internet a few questions. Actually, they weren't even questions. We just threw some words at the internet. We didn't even put a question mark on it. We asked the internet. We said, I don't know how you say what we said to the internet. We said, internet, quadcopter, cat. We were drinking. And what did the internet do? The internet obliged. The internet gave us a quadcopter cat. I know, it's real. Yeah, a Dutch artist made, stuffed his old cat. The cat died of natural causes, and made a quadcopter out of it. It blows my mind. It's not the internet that's amazing, it's people. If you stop for a moment and think about it, people make the internet amazing. If we didn't share stuff, if we shared nothing, the internet would be empty. So there we were, like Daniel and I, just marveling at this thing. And sometimes it's really important just to stop and to remember how incredible this tool is, and to remember what it has enabled, how it's changed the world. We are living in an unprecedented time where more and more of us are learning through sharing. It's incredible. Anyway, so we're still in the pub with a quadcopter cat. We're still in the pub, and our conversation shifted massively, as it does when you're having a pint. And we started talking about people and human nature and bad habits, a little bit, embarrassing habits. And we started to talk about our ability to ignore things that annoy us. I think all of us are pretty good at this. And we started talking about how we adapt and adjust to small problems and allow things to become our new normal. What would you do if the lock on the driver's side of your car stopped working? Well, we'd all do the same bloody thing. We'd climb in through the passenger seat. And we'd get really good at it. We'd have a little knack at climbing over the gear stick and shifting our butt over the handbrake and be like, that was a good maneuver. And everything would be grand. And the same, like if a light bulb just stopped working in the hallway. Again, we would just adapt. We go, I know the way. I've done this before. It's fine. And this is a good thing. We were talking about this and we said, this is how we've survived. We adapt and we change to environments. And without that, I don't know what would be really. And so it's a really good thing. But then we start to think, well, is this instinct always a good thing? Are there some things that we should not accept? Are there things that we should challenge, small things? This conversation, it reminded me of a story that had happened recently at work. My job is I'm co-founder of Sugru, and that's my day job. That's where I spend 99.5% of my time. But this is really a story about Farida. Farida broke the joystick on her wheelchair, and her carer, Emer, decided not to accept this new normal, not to allow this to take away some of Farida's independence, so she tried to fix it. And Emer's incredibly smart, so she tried to fix it with Sugru, but it wasn't working out for her. So she contacted us by email through customer care. And customer care is something we take a great deal of pride in at Sugru. We ship Sugru to 157 countries all around the world from our tiny little factory in East London. And I was delighted when I realized that Emer was just 1.5 miles down the road. So instead of doing this email customer support tennis, I decided to hop my bike and see how I could help myself. And while I was doing that, we also documented the process. We made a short 2-minute video, and we stuck the video onto YouTube. And in the video, we just showed really simple stuff. We showed Farida's broken joystick. This is Emer's first failed attempt to fix it. Then my first failed attempt to fix it. And then we showed how I fixed it in the end. And Farida's a 13-year-old girl, and her favorite color is yellow. So I used yellow Sugru to fix it. And she also asked for some bling. And I obliged. And weirdly, I had a pocket full of Swarovski crystals. So I just pushed 2 or 3 of them into the joystick. I'm going to have some now. And that solved the problem for her. And here's Farida a few days later, driving around a full pelt. Delighted. Go, Farida. So I was in the pub with Daniel, and I showed him this video on my phone in the pub, and he loved it. That's why we're friends, I think. And it made me feel pretty proud, but the most important thing that happened at that point was it triggered this really exciting conversation between us. We started to talk about Farida. We talked about how, in spite of all the excellent care and support that Farida had, this problem was significant enough to take away some of Farida's independence. I mean, it's crazy, but, and it's great that Emer challenged this problem. And then we talked about how easy for me to fix this problem. It cost me maybe £7 of materials, mainly on crystals. And about an hour and a half of my time, a tiny amount of effort from me. And fixing this was easy for me, and it doesn't make me a particularly clever person, but I think it was easy because I'm a trained product designer. I'm trained to think with my hands. I'm also trained to know that making mistakes doesn't make me stupid. That making mistakes is how we figure things out. It's how we learn. And Daniel and I were talking about how sharing the mistakes in the video kind of gives other people permission to make mistakes too. And when you give people permission to make mistakes, you're effectively giving them permission to learn. And it was at this point that we had a sort of a eureka moment. We started to think about fixing differently. We started to see fixing as a miniature design process. So Farida was my client, effectively. The wheelchair was sort of my brief, and the fixing process, well, that's the iterative design process. Now, this might seem like a really insignificant observation, but it's usually a tiny shift in our perceptions, tiniest shift that helps us create new ideas. And this shift in our perception in that pub got us really excited. Fixing is a miniature design process. So we started to think about designers differently. We started to see designers as people with an abundance of skills and creativity. And then we started to think, well, what if we thought about designers as social toolboxes? And what if we connected these social toolboxes with small local problems? And what if they documented this process? And what if they posted that collaboration online so that other people could watch and learn and copy from it? And what if this idea was plugged into design education? What would that mean for people? What would that mean for designers? And what could it mean for design? It was at that point that Daniel and I realized that perhaps we were a little bit drunk. So we went home. And it's really from bitter experience that I've learned that ideas, great ideas, conceived in pubs, over pints, they don't survive. They don't survive their own hangover. A few days later, though, Daniel and I, we hooked up again, this time for coffee. And we realized that both of us were still hugely excited about this idea. It was like, yeah, it's brilliant, I love it, And we decided, because we've always talked about working together, we said, you know what, let's collaborate on this idea. Let's do this. And, first things first. If we're going to do this, we needed a name. This is my suggestion. Connect designers with small local problems and document the fixing process to share online so that others can copy and learn. I thought that this captured it in a nutshell. And I was delighted that the main name was available. It's registered to me. If anybody wants it, it's for sale. But Daniel, on the other hand, Daniel, wise man, Daniel thought it was too long. And he's a little bit of a wordsmith, so he suggested, maybe a bit of a know-it-all wordsmith, he suggested, why don't you stick the word fix and the word expert together? And just like that, Fixperts was born. Yay! Thank you. This time we're on coffee. This time we're probably highly caffeinated. And this idea was still really exciting in our head. But we did know one thing. We knew that we needed to test this idea. And we knew that if we were going to test this idea, that we would need help. So we called friends, designers, students, teachers, and their reaction to the idea was incredible. They immediately loved the idea. They immediately just wanted to get involved and help make this idea happen. And all of these people, and more of them, they're like us. They all have day jobs. If we're lucky, they have day jobs. And they, together, in just about a month, produced the first 6 Fixperts films in their spare time. And that's sort of the essence of this. This is about spare time and pocket change. And I want to share one of their stories with you now. Say hello to Dan and Sophie. Dan and Sophie were two young graphic design students at Kingston University, and they went out and they found Edna. Edna was somebody just in their community, and they spent time with Edna, observing her life and her routines, and they realized that Edna, she's pretty independent, but they also discovered that she needed help every day to put on her socks. Just this tiny, tiny thing. And that was something that Edna had learned to adjust, had learned to accept, and that was her new normal. But Dan and Sophie decided that that was the tiny part of Edna's life that they would challenge. So they went away, and they made loads of prototypes, made loads of mistakes, and they made this bizarre contraption you can kind of see. And they gave it to Edna, and it worked a treat. And this is how it made Edna feel. That's how it made Edna feel. We posted this video on Fixperts.org, where it's been watched, liked, and shared thousands of times. And I hope that loads of people have copied this idea too. I love this project. And I love it because 2 young designers made the effort to go out and connect with somebody. I love this project because they spent the time to understand her life and her needs. I love this project because they identified a problem that Edna had learned to accept, and they challenged it. And I love this project because they created a really simple, elegant solution that was very easy for Edna to use. And I love this project because they posted it online so that others could copy it and learn from it. Most of all, I love how this project made Edna feel. I want to show you the clip again. This is how two young designers, by giving Edna a small piece of her independence back, made her feel. Since we launched Fixperts, people all around the world have connected with the idea. People have committed their time, their skill to the project. People have become ambassadors. They've brought Fixperts to schools, universities, and communities all around the world, places far-flung as Tokyo and Japan, America, South Africa, Poland, England, and here. It's happened here in Dublin, under your noses. It's stories about people like Farida, like Edna, but also stories about, this is John, Ben, Yoav, Harold, Alina, Denise, Erika, Bobby, Chris, hundreds of people around the world. This idea deserves to be shared. It deserves to be shared to inspire people. It deserves to be shared to remind people that you don't have to accept the status quo, that some of the things that we accept as our new normal, we don't have to. It deserves to be shared so people can copy them, so people can learn from them, so that more people can benefit from these ideas. This isn't just a story about Edna. This is a story about the potential of design. This is a story about designers, the potential that's inherent in every young designer. And it's a story about the potential of connecting these designers with small, local, and very real problems. Watching these videos, Daniel and I realized that small ideas can be great ideas. And great ideas belong to everyone. Thank you.